Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Planning and Development Committee meeting of April 23rd, 2025. Niagara Region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendourong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and the town of Grimsby stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest? Seeing none, can I have a mover and seconder to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Freg, second by Member Drew. Resolved that the April 23rd, 2025 Planning and Development Committee agenda be approved. All in favor? And that's carried. Up next, we have receipt of previous minutes. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the previous minutes? Moved by Member Drew, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that the following minutes be received. Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee of April 8th, 2025. Planning and Development Committee of April 9th, 2025. All in favor? That's carried. Up next, we move to a public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment application.
I can't really hear very well.
We will now move to the public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment application at 129 Mountain Road. The premise of this public meeting is to provide an opportunity for the public to provide input on the proposed application. I would like to stress that there have been no decisions or recommendations made by council or planning staff on these applications. This meeting is conducted with accordance with the town's procedural bylaw. All participants are asked to conduct themselves with decorum and respect and provide the opportunity for all members of the public to express their opinion in an environment of tolerance on all points of view and free of intimidation. The intent is to create a venue to encourage people to participate in the process and provide their input. If a person or public body could otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Town of Grimsby to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Grimsby before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. Excuse me. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions in a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Grimsby before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. With us this evening is Denise Horn from the NPG Planning Solutions, presenting on behalf of the applicants, William and Linda Emsley. Planning staff in attendance are Michaela Bray, planner, and Walter Basic, Assistant Director of Planning. We will start with staff providing a brief presentation outlining the building process and an overview of the application from a planning perspective. Next will be an opportunity for you to ask questions and provide input. If you have not already done so, please ensure that you have signed in so that you will be informed of future meetings on this proposal. As we navigate the public meeting, we ask all participants for your patience. Each participant will be called in order and will be provided 10 minutes to speak. Each presenter may speak only once. If you hear your comment presented by someone else, please do not duplicate the remarks. When you are called, we ask you to state your name and address. Persons addressing the committee shall confine their remarks to the business at hand and shall direct their comments or questions to the chair. Staff are taking notes on all questions and comments this evening. At the end of the delegations, planning staff will be asked to respond to all the questions and comments raised. If you feel that your questions have not been responded to this evening, you can email our planning department at planning@grimsby.ca. Michaela Bray will now give a presentation. Welcome to Michaela.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Good afternoon, everyone. Michaela Bray, a planner with the Town of Grimsby. I'm here to run the public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment at 129 Mountain Road. It's our first of two public meetings tonight. And joined with me here today is our applicant on the file, so being represented by Denise Horn from NPG Planning Solutions, and one of the landowners, Linda Emsley. Next slide, please. So for this public meeting here, myself, I'll go through the town planning department presentation, and then if our applicant or their agent would like to add anything, they'll have an opportunity to afterwards. And then any questions or comments will be welcome. We don't have any registered delegates for this one, but anyone can ask if they'd like. Next slide, please. So the purpose of the meeting tonight is just to provide an overview of our planning process for zoning bylaw amendment, gives you an overview of the policies that are in place. It provides details on any of the comments that we've received to date on the application. And then if our applicant would like to add any more to our presentation, they can provide more details. And then the last purpose is to answer any questions and listen to your feedback. Next slide, please. So kind of answering the question of why can we change this bylaw in our Planning Act. It provides authority for applicants to submit applications for development proposals that don't meet the intent of the zoning bylaw or the official plan. We have to process these applications when they come in. And in this case, the zoning bylaw could be changed if it's determined that the proposed changes still meet the overall intent of the official plan and result in development that's compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Next slide, please. So for this specific application at 129 Mountain Road, we're at the statutory public meeting process. So there were two initial applications through different agencies for this application that led us to this one. So for context, there's been a conditionally approved consent application and a development permit in the escarpment regulated lands. So now we've moved on to our zoning bylaw amendment, which is actually a condition of approval to finalize their consent application. But I'll get into more details. So specifically for the zoning bylaw application, the application was submitted late last year, I believe, maybe early this year. We've done one circulation for public and technical review. And I'll get into those comments later in the presentation. So right now we're at the statutory public meeting, which is required by the Planning Act. And after this, there'll still be time for any further analysis or revisions needed. Then we'll move to a staff recommendation report, likely next month. And then we'll have a council decision on whether this amendment to the zoning bylaw can be approved. Next slide, please. So it is a public process, so we do want to hear what you have to say. You can either speak tonight, send a letter or email to our planning department, or send a copy of your email or your letter to your ward councillor. Next slide, please. So we also, if you're interested to stay informed, so you can provide us with your mailing address. We would provide you with notice of future meetings, any subsequent staff reports, any information about speaking in front of committee if you want to, or information on how to appeal the application. Next slide, please. So now I'll get into a little more detail of the application. So the colored areas you see on the screen make up the entire extent of 129 Mountain Road. So right now it's all one parcel. The purple part shows the lands that are being severed. And this was part of a previous application for consent that's been conditionally approved. And then combined, the blue and the green areas are the retained lands. So just for some context, the purple contains a surplus farm dwelling, and the combined retained lands would contain agricultural only. And then something unique about this site is that it's kind of split between the Niagara Escarpment controlled area. So the green and the blue is actually controlled by their office through a development permit that has been approved. And then the remaining green area is controlled by the town's zoning bylaw. And it's kind of that green area that we're looking to do an amendment to the zoning bylaw. So as part of their consent application, there was a condition of approval that the remaining lot had to be zoned for agricultural purposes only, as well as permitting accessory buildings to that use. So it's governed in the blue area by their development permit, but then the town has to implement those provisions on that green area where our zoning bylaw is in effect. So next slide, please. So just a review of some of the policies that are in place. The red square just shows an approximation of where the subject lands are. The northern part is designated specialty crop, tender fruit and grape lands, and the southern part, the brownish color is, sorry, I have that backwards. Green is the escarpment protection area, and then the brown is the specialty crop area. And that's in Schedule B of our official plan. So then, next slide, please. And then just a quick review of the zoning bylaw that applies. So again, the red is just a approximation of where the subject lands are. The hatched area shows where the Escarpment Commission kind of governs what can be done on the lot. And then the white part is our specialty crop zone, which again is what we're amending tonight. And then just to get into a bit more detail of that. So right now it is zone specialty crop. And what we would be doing is rezoning still to specialty crop, but adding in some site-specific zoning. The first one being that only agricultural uses would be permitted on the site, as well as accessory buildings to that use. And then because of the severance, we just need to implement some modified lot standards, so a reduced lot frontage and reduced lot area requirements. So those really would be the only changes to the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, the application has been circulated for public and technical review. These are the agencies that were relevant that we circulated to. So from the planning department, I've reviewed their previous applications in relation to this, that being their consent application and their development permit through the Escarpment Commission. Planning staff supported both of those, and we don't have any comments or objections to this zoning bylaw amendment. We circulated our Public Works Department. They had no comments or objections. The Niagara Escarpment Commission reviewed this against their development permit application, and they have no objections. Also, the Conservation Authority, no objections, and Niagara Region had no comments. So that was just a brief summary, but there is a full comment matrix in the report that was included in the agenda. So that's all I have in my presentation today. So if Denise Horn, if you'd like to add anything, you're welcome to now. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and committee. We do have a PowerPoint, which hopefully can be pulled up. Beautiful. Wonderful, thank you. So my name is Denise Horn, and I'm the manager of Heritage and Policy Planning for NPG Planning Solutions. We're based in Niagara Falls. And we're working with our client, the property owner, through this application process. We can go, well, I guess I'll just highlight for you, sorry, in the slide there, that is the surplus farm dwelling that you're seeing on the slide, which is on the portion of the lot that will be severed. Okay, so if we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So Michaela's already given us a really great overview. Thanks, Michaela, for that. And also for the detailed staff report. All the details are in there and are provided for your review. So Michaela's already outlined the fact that this is a unique property in the sense that it has the split zoning. There's different jurisdictions governing the property specifically. So as she highlighted, the north section is under the Niagara Escarpment control. And so we have gone through their processes for the consent. And of course, as Michaela noted, we also came to the Town of Grimsby's Committee of Adjustment application. So we now have approval from the Niagara Escarpment Commission and the Committee of Adjustment for the consent to sever. And the Niagara Escarpment Commission has issued us a development permit for the severance, and we are in the process of fulfilling those conditions now. So it was an approval subject to conditions. And the consent to sever from the Town of Grimsby Committee of Adjustment was also an approval subject to conditions, and we are in the process of fulfilling those conditions now. And one of them, of course, is the zoning bylaw amendment process, which we are going through now. So Michaela's already given you an overview of what the zoning is on the property. But in essence, just to give you a sense, the agricultural purposes only will not change any of the existing uses on the property. Visually from the street, nothing will change. No active agricultural lands are proposed to be taken out of production. So the proposal for the severance is for basically a 1 acre lot to be severed essentially. And that would just be the surplus farm dwelling. It's not going to impact the agricultural lands in any way. And the zoning is therefore just to address the changes in lot frontage for the basically the retained farmland and the reduced lot area. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please. So I've already highlighted essentially what we've gone through, the NEC development permit, the consent application, and this is just an image showing you part 1 is the part to be severed. That's the farmhouse. It contains 2 barns and the farmhouse. And then on the retained farmland, which is part 3, which is just outside of that blue area, there are 2 existing barns. At the moment, they are planned to be retained. Next slide, please. So, yeah, in essence, just two requests for the zoning bylaw amendment to permit a minimum lot area of 15.4 hectares and to permit the lot frontage to be reduced to 134.65 meters. And again, nothing is functionally changing at this point. The property owner has already received an entrance permit from the Niagara region, and the driveway for the farmland has already been installed, given that approval. Next slide, please. So as outlined in our planning justification report that we submitted with the zoning bylaw amendment application, in our opinion, the application is consistent with the PPS. It conforms with the Greenbelt Plan and the Niagara Escarpment Plan, the NOP, the Niagara Official Plan, and the Town of Grimsby Official Plan. It will achieve long-term protection of the agricultural lands in the Niagara Escarpment Protection Area. We have obtained our NEC development permit, and we have obtained consent approval. And that draws our presentation to a close. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, if there are any.
Great, thank you for your presentation, Denise. Now I'll open it up to members of the public. Are there any members of the public that would like to come up to the podium and speak on this? Seeing none, are there any questions or clarifications from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you for your participation in the public meeting. Staff will take your feedback. Please contact staff at planning@grimsby.ca if you have any additional comments or questions about the proposal after this evening. Now we move to our second public meeting, 556, 564 Kemp Road East zoning bylaw amendment. The premise of this public meeting is to provide an opportunity for the public to provide input on the proposed application. I would like to stress that there have been no decisions or recommendations made by council or planning staff on these applications. This meeting is conducted in accordance with the town's procedural bylaw. All participants are asked to conduct themselves with decorum and respect and provide the opportunity for all members of the public to express their opinion in an environment of tolerance on all points of view and free of intimidation. The intent is to create a venue to encourage people to participate in the process and provide their input. If a person or public body would otherwise have the ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Town of Grimsby to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Grimsby before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Grimsby before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. With us this evening is John Romanoff from Romanoff and Romanoff Architects, presenting on behalf of the applicant, Frank Camiso. Planning staff in attendance are Sarup Sandhu, planner, and Walter Basic, Assistant Director of Planning. We will start with staff providing a brief presentation outlining the process and an overview of the application from a planning perspective. Next, there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions and provide input. If you have not already done so, please ensure that you've signed in so you will be informed of future meetings at the proposal. As we navigate the public meeting, we ask participants for your patience. Each participant will be called in order and will be provided 10 minutes to speak. Each presenter may speak only once. If you hear your comments presented by someone else, please do not duplicate the remarks. When you are called, we ask that you state your name and address. Persons addressing the committee shall confine their remarks to the business at hand and shall direct all their comments or questions to the chair. Staff are taking notes of all questions and comments this evening. At the end of the delegations, planning staff will be asked to respond to all of the questions and comments raised. If you feel that your questions have not been responded to this evening, you can email our planning department at planning@grimsby.ca. Sarup, welcome, and you go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I got excited, so I'm already at the front. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarup Sandhu. I'm one of the planners with the town. Today, I will be providing a quick presentation regarding this proposed zoning bylaw amendment application at 556-564 Kemp Road East. Next slide. So to begin this public meeting, I will be going through a short presentation, providing you with some insight on this application, and then I will briefly introduce the site and what's proposed. John Romanoff, the agent representing the applicant, is also here, and he will be providing some greater details about this application. Following our presentations, there will be time to ask questions and provide any comments or concerns that you may have. Next slide. So the purpose of tonight's meeting, also briefly explained by Michaela, is to provide you an overview of the planning process for these types of applications. This includes the process from start to finish and where exactly the town is currently with this application. An overview of the policy and regulatory frameworks will also be provided, including the relevant official plan policies and zoning provisions that are in place. We will also go over some agency feedback as a result of agency circulation. And of course, the agent will also be providing additional details regarding this application. Next slide. So why can plans or bylaws change? Under the Planning Act, authority is provided to submit applications for development plans that may not meet the current official plan or zoning bylaw. Town's role is to process the applications as they come in. These applications are only able to be amend the official plan if it's determined that the proposed changes still comply with the overall intent of the official plan, and as a result, these changes and the development is compatible with the surrounding area. Next slide. So this is where we're currently at in the process. We're at the statutory public meeting. Before this flow chart shows how an application comes through. This includes the pre-consultation, where relevant agencies such as the region or the NPCA may comment. Once the application is made, it goes through a circulation period for the public and agencies. And then we are currently at that public meeting stage, which provides opportunity for comments to be made about the application from the public. After the public meeting, staff will prepare a recommendation report for council regarding the application in accordance with the prescribed timelines of the Planning Act. A decision on this application will be made at a future meeting. Next slide. Have your say. The planning process is an open process, so it allows the public to have a say. The public meeting is one of the opportunities to gives you option to say, state your opinion on this application. Additionally, you can either write a letter or email the planning department. The email is planning@grimsby.ca. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit into the application now. So this is the surrounding area. It is characterized by primarily agricultural and residential uses. The subject property is on the east end of the town, near the border of the town of Lincoln. The subject property is currently being used for both residential and agricultural uses. Next slide. So the proposed development is to amend the current site-specific zoning to remove the excluded uses of wedding and special events on the subject lands. This application seeks to define winery as an agricultural-related use. So as you can see on the site plan here, the new uses, aka special events, are to be located within existing winery building in the red. As stated in the planning justification report for this application, no modifications on this site or construction of new buildings will occur as proposed for this amendment. The requested amendment will not affect current conditions on the site, but rather introduce flexibility for future expansion. The site plan depicts either all existing or approved buildings. So this is currently what's on site. Next slide. So the town's official plan and the Niagara official plan has deemed this property specialty crop area, tender fruit and grape lands. So specifically to the town's official plan, section 3.3.2, specialty crop area, tender fruit and grape land, permitted uses are agricultural uses and secondary uses to those agricultural uses. That includes any farm-related, commercial, farm-related, industrial uses, etc. Next slide. Okay, so the subject lands are currently zoned specialty crop as well in the zoning bylaw. The purpose and effect of this proposed bylaw amendment is to amend the site-specific zoning, also seen on Schedule 17B, to modify the site-specific code 333. Essentially, you can kind of see it up there on that table. Essentially, this site-specific zoning prohibits the weddings and special events due to the 2% of the on-farm diversified uses. Essentially, this application seeks to redefine that as winery is now considered an agricultural related use, while other uses on site, such as wine sales and hospitality and wine tasting, is still limited to that 2% as on-farm diversified use. I want to note specifically that the specialty crop zoning is not changing, so it's still going to remain specialty crop. And also, I do want to note that our bylaw does not have a definition for winery, so that might come up if you try to search up winery in our bylaw. So just those two notes. Next slide. So during the circulation for external and internal departments, comments were received by planning staff, public works, heritage, and Niagara, the region of Niagara. So planning staff want to note that the wedding and special events is still limited to the 2% of the farm parcel, as it is considered an on-farm diversified use, not an agriculture related use. The same cannot be said about winery. As a result, any development on site that is related to the on-farm diversified uses, for example, any additional buildings that need to go up for these special events, will be subject to site plan application. Additionally, Public Works staff would like some further clarification on the site plan. They note that if conditions are to remain the same for this application, they have no comments. But if as a part of this application, any additional work is proposed, they may require a stormwater management report, a grading plan, and a site servicing plan. Niagara Region had no planning comments. However, they do note that as related to the septic on site, if the capacity for the proposed special events passes the occupancy load as permitted by the Ontario Building Code, then the winery will need to obtain a permit for septic by the region to expand that system. Heritage had no comments currently, but the site may be subject to further archaeological assessments if any development is proposed down the line. A full comment matrix for all agencies is provided in Appendix B in the staff report. Oh, and then please submit any written comments to planning@grimsby.ca. Thank you.
All right, did Mr. Romanoff want to speak on this, Swoop? All right, welcome.
To the public, John Romanov, architect for the project. So I just have a few slides to present. Next slide, please. So as the planning department said, we're maintaining the current approved site plan, which is depicted on the screen to your right. All of the buildings that are shown there are actually existing buildings, including the red building, which is the current winery building. I'll just clarify, and I guess it's already known, but just to reiterate that the zoning does already permit a winery, which again is the building that is built there. What we are seeking to do is clarify the uses that are allowed within the winery context and as relates to the 2% occupancy or land area, use area that's allowed on the site. So again, we're looking at 3 uses that would be permitted. One would be agricultural use, which comes under the specialty crop as of right. The second use would be agricultural related use and on-farm diversified use. And we'll look at those other 2 uses in a minute and how they relate to the official plan and to some guidelines by Omofri. Also like to specify that the weddings and special events right now are an excluded use on the site. So we're not looking to zone the site to allow that. All we're asking is that those uses would be not excluded uses. So in other words, they would be uses that could be used under the special events issue by the town on any site currently. Next slide, please. So existing and proposed ZBL. So as was mentioned, the existing ZBL is on the upper level. Proposed, again, is on the lower level. Won't go into details. I think Planning Department already proposed what the issues are specifically. I'll just go into specifically in terms of the wedding and special events and the winery use, on-farm diversified uses as well. So the zoning bylaw for the site would be classify the winery and would specify the additional uses that's already part of the overall winery use. So the uses and classifications would be as follows: winery, and then wine sales, hospitality, and wine tasting. The winery is defined as an agricultural related use, whereas the wine sales and hospitality, wine tasting are defined as on-farm diversified uses and are limited to 2% of the farm parcel up to a maximum size of 1 hectare. And this comes from Omofri guidelines, which are referenced through the official plans of both the region and the municipality, and also the provincial policy statement. Next slide, please. So there's just some excerpts from the Omofri guidelines. So on the upper right-hand side, you can see that the winery is classified as an agricultural-related use inasmuch as the winery is on a site where wine crop is grown, and that the wine that is produced on the winery is either from specific farm that the winery is situated on or from grapes within the regional context of that winery. So in other words, if juice was brought over from Europe or from South America for some other location outside of the region, that would not be classified as a winery within the context of a farm-related use. So in this case, all of the grapes, all of the production that is done by Camisa Winery is from grapes that are grown on the property or from the region. So it's all VAQ designated winery and produced within the winery building that's on the site currently. Well, everything's not moved there yet. The building's still under construction internally, but basically the idea is that all the production would be within that winery building. Retail cafe and on-farm diversified uses, again, are designated or proposed under AMOFRE guidelines. So the retail cafe, currently that's approved under our building permit, is for 30 persons. So it's a small facility. And also same with the wine tasting and sales, all contained within that building. So that would relate back to small-scale retail or hospitality as contained within the AMOFRE guidelines as on-farm diversified. Next slide, please. So to get then to the weddings and special events. So again, we're not asking for those specific elements to be zoned for this site. All we're saying is that as any other site currently within the municipality, those would be subject to special events approvals under the special events guidelines that are already part of the Grimsby bylaw system or reference system. So basically anything that expands beyond what is already approved or what we're proposing would be approved under the zoning bylaw. The amendments to the zoning bylaw would be subject to special events guidelines and licensing or application to the town for those special events. We're not suggesting that in any way, shape, or form that there would be additional permanent buildings on the site. That, again, would be against the AMOFRE guidelines, wouldn't allow any large-scale gathering places or that sorts to be actually constructed on the sites or as a permanent site. So this is not a permanent issue that would be looked at. It would just be a temporary issue that would be part of, again, these special events guidelines. And I would also note that if you look at other wineries within the region, basically in Niagara-on-the-Lake or in Lincoln, all of those wineries are subject to the same sorts of systems as in Grimsby for special events, and all of them hold special events from time to time. In terms of the requirements under your guidelines for special events, there is requirement for noise abatement, control, parking must be provided on the site. Sanitary facilities and washrooms would be temporarily provided as per the guidelines. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, we feel that what we're proposing is indeed under the guidelines of AMOFRE. It's in line with those guidelines. It's in line with the provincial policy statement and in line with the official plan of both the town and the region. Again, not specifically zoned for weddings and special events. We're not asking for that. We're just asking for this property to be subject to the same rules and conditions as any other property within the town boundaries. Okay, so as far as I can see, there are no other site-specific zoning restrictions that relate to weddings and special events within the town. So in that way, this site is an anomaly within the zoning bylaw. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now open it up to members of the public. We have 3 registered delegations tonight. I'll start with the first one, Ronald and Diane Smith. Please come to the podium. don't see them here. Up next is Andrew and Rita Flute.
Who did you say?
The first person I called was Ronald and Diane Smith.
Yeah, okay, that's me.
Okay.
Anyways, thank you. I'm Ron Smith, and I basically live on 576 Camp Road, next door to Frank, and based to the proposed site. And I'm just looking at, basically, I'm waiting for a presentation from Richard, and then basically look at, where we're going to go with this. But what we're looking at is the noise bylaw, right? Because if the wedding thing, previously, they did have some wedding presentations that were maybe a couple of years ago, and these didn't work quite, out well, because they went past the bylaw, which was basically 11 o'clock, right? And I don't know what the proposal is with the bylaw. Is there any current, money that's basically allocated towards the bylaw, if the noise, if it gets carried away?
Do you mean fines or?
Fines, yes.
Walter, can you help us with that?
Yeah, my apologies, I'm not familiar with the noise bylaw and what fine provisions are associated with it. It's a municipal act bylaw. Thanks.
Well, they can look at that in anyways. So that would be our, our concern. Like, if we go past, because we do have 14 homes that are related to the current proposal, right? There is 14 homes that are affected by, the area. So proposed. So anyways, I'll just leave it like that. Thank you.
All right, you're very welcome. Up next, we have Andrew and Rita Flute. Please come to the podium.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Flute. I live at 532 Kemp Road. I'll be very brief. We're about the fifth house from the Camiso winery, so we're quite a distance away, and yet it's troubling to see the noise Friday, Saturday, and I'm just there on behalf of my neighbors. I can't imagine living any closer than what we are with the amount of noise that occurs from that area. So I just wanted to say we are some distance away, and yet we hear it, and the poor people that are almost right at their doorstep. It's not really right to have a weekend interrupted like that. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Up next, we have Richard Borger. Richard, please come to the podium.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan and Planning Committee. I prepared a formal presentation because I am actually right next door to the subject property, and I have quite a vested interest in the outcome of today's meeting. So I live at 548 Kemp Road East. I'm 2 doors down from the subject property, and I'd like to thank you for allowing me to come and present tonight as a neighbor's perspective to the property. Next slide, please. I've included an overview here of my presentation. I've also submitted a copy of my presentation that I believe has been forwarded to you, as I will move through the slides quite quickly to ensure I remain within the time constraints provided. So let's actually start right away with an introduction to the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So as you can see here from the map on screen, the area around the subject property is a cluster of residential homes within a rural setting. There are 14 homes along a relatively short section of street, 475 meters of Kemp Road East, and it represents a significant density compared to the surrounding area. Also within 1 kilometer of the subject property, there are 11 homes with school-age children, as well as a home for special needs, or for adults with special needs. Next slide, please. To further clarify this, I actually mapped the surrounding area and compared the density of the houses in the area around the subject property. So you can see Zone 1 is highlighted there in yellow. That's the area around the subject property up to the Town of Grimsby municipal boundary. You'll see the density there is 29.5 houses per kilometer. The other zones are listed. Zone 6 bears special interest. Zone 6 is a section of road nearby that has 5 wineries on it. Those properties are similar in nature to the subject property and yet have 60% less housing density than the area around the subject property. It's clear that the subject property is essentially in the center of a rural neighborhood and actually deserves special consideration by the Planning Committee here tonight. Next slide, please. At a previous meeting held in 2017 for the subject property, a zoning amendment was passed that prohibited weddings and special events. However, since then, the winery has advertised and hosted many special events and weddings, as you can see from these captures of the winery's Instagram and Facebook pages. This demonstrates a clear and public history of non-compliance for zoning requirements at the property. Next slide, please. In recent years, there were several large weddings hosted at the Commisso Winery. These events were actually quite loud, so loud as it was as if we were attending the weddings in our own backyard. Going indoors didn't make matters much better. The music and speeches were so loud we could follow along with the weddings from inside our own homes. Each of these weddings were reported to bylaw enforcement by us and by a number of our neighbors. The challenge we are faced with, though, is that noise bylaw infractions are complaints-based and reactive. So neighbors are subjected to the noisy event and are helpless at the time of the event. We have really no real-time recourse at the time of the event to end any of the noise. Next slide, please. In October 2024, the town of Grimsby concluded that short-term rentals were not defined as permitted use within the town of Grimsby and are therefore a prohibited use. Bed and breakfasts are permitted, but short-term rentals are not. As of yesterday, I haven't checked today, but as of yesterday, the subject property continues to advertise a short-term rental of an entire home on a popular short-term rental site, as seen here on screen. To clarify, the plans submitted by the architect as well as the commission consultant refer to this as a help house. It is not a help house. It is indeed a short-term rental. Next slide, please. In the report commissioned by the subject property, the consultant indicates that existing lot coverage for the winery is currently at 3.2%, with a desired increase to 4.6%. It begs the question, how was the subject property permitted to erect new buildings that automatically put the use category above the permitted coverage regulations? Council and Town of Grimsby limited the area to be occupied by the winery operation to 2% according to zoning. However, the consultant's report provided by the subject property for this meeting shows that this area has already been exceeded by 160% more than what was permitted. What assurances will be provided to both this committee and the neighbors that the proposed area will not exceed the shown 4.6% here in the report? Next slide, please. Throughout the report and also in presentations tonight, the consultant and subject property owners have consistently referred to the guidelines on permitted uses in Ontario's prime agricultural areas as published by OMAFRA. While respecting the guidelines, it's important to note that they are not an elected body with planning authority and that the town of Grimsby has the autonomy and responsibility to make decisions affecting their ratepayers in a fair and equitable manner. The redesignation of winery operations from on-farm diversified use to agriculture-related use is in fact supported by the OMAFRA guidelines as seen here. Next slide, please. However, as Swaroop mentioned earlier, a review of the town of Grimsby zoning bylaw shows that there is no definition of what constitutes a winery operation, while neighboring municipalities such as the town of Lincoln have one. It is important that the town of Grimsby creates a definition of what constitutes winery operations before completing this redesignation, since agriculture-related activities are treated differently in the noise bylaw. Next slide, please. The guidelines also support the inclusion of wine tasting and wine retail as on-farm diversified use, as has been addressed earlier tonight. However, it's important to note that full-scale restaurants are not to be included as on-farm diversified uses. Furthermore, there is no definition of what counts as hospitality. A review of the town of Grimsby zoning bylaw shows that the town does not have a definition, and neither does the Niagara region. This ambiguity presents a potential problem for both the town of Grimsby as well as neighbors of the subject property. Next slide, please. If we examine Table 4 in the consultant's report, if the Planning Committee approves the request being considered tonight, the proposed on-farm diversified use will be only 1.1% of lot coverage, leaving 0.9% lot coverage available. That works out to about 1,150 square meters before the suggested 2% lot coverage is reached. Next slide, please. The winery on the subject property has previously sponsored Theatre Bacchus, as it's not unusual. Many other local wineries have done the same. What's intriguing, though, is that in February 2025, Theatre Bacchus began fundraising for a new building that will be set in the heart of the Niagara Benchlands. By definition, theatre arts are a form of hospitality services. Without peddling in rumor or exaggerating any concerns, if there is no boundary or clear definition of what is permitted by hospitality uses, it is impossible to exclude this as a potential future development for the site in question, especially considering that a theatre of this size would fit within the 2% allotment being requested by the subject property. This would result in even further disruption for the rural neighborhood on Kemp Road. Next slide, please. I would then like to address the removal of the prohibition of weddings and special events through topics addressed or introduced by the consultant's report, as you see here on screen. Next slide, please. OMAFR specifically lists full-scale restaurants and banquet halls as not meeting on-farm diversified use criteria. By definition, this describes the use and function of a hall that is to be used as a wedding venue. Based on this analysis, weddings should not be permitted on the subject property, and the prohibition on them should continue. On-farm diversified uses must also meet compatibility requirements, including reasonable noise and traffic considerations. Earlier, I outlined that weddings hosted at the subject property have resulted in significant noise disruptions to the neighborhood, with multiple complaints being addressed to the relevant authorities, both bylaw and police, thus clearly not meeting compatibility requirements. Next slide, please. In their report, the consultant concludes that weddings and special events are a form of agritourism. The town of Grimsby, however, defines agritourism as uses that have a direct relationship to the agricultural uses on the farm. Emphasis not mine. By this definition, weddings are not agritourism at all. At best, they might be defined as agravoyeurism, a visit to the area to see the country without actually engaging in it. Next slide, please. OMAFRA concludes that smaller scale and seasonal special events, such as maple syrup festivals, are considered acceptable on-farm diversified uses, but large-scale events are not. Large-scale events are, in fact, to be directed to existing facilities such as fairgrounds, parks, and community centers by OMAFRA's guideline. Each year, local wineries on Mountain View Road participate in an event called Graze the Bench, an event that draws over 5,000 people each year. Without adequate guidelines, it's likely the subject property will seek inclusion into larger scale events of this nature. Next slide, please. In their report, the consultant concludes that compatibility, and it was also addressed this evening by an earlier delegation, that compatibility with neighboring properties can be achieved through special event setup guidelines and the noise bylaw. This conclusion relies on enforcement to achieve goals that can actually be met through responsible planning. In the event of a large-scale event or wedding that generates significant amounts of noise from the subject property, the residents have only one recourse for real-time enforcement. We can call the police. Rather than offloading the responsibility of this decision through enforcement techniques, it should be dealt with through responsible planning. Next slide, please. Coming back to Zone 6 that I showed on an earlier map, there are 6 other wineries along that stretch of Kemp Road. It's at the boundary, it turns into Mountain View Road, so it's listed as Kemp Road and Mountain View Road. 5 of those 6 wineries do not permit weddings on their site. The one that does capped weddings at 50 people. Each of those sites indicated noise concerns as a reason for not including weddings at their winery. Consultant does not appear to have considered how those wineries can generate revenue without not hosting weddings at their venues. In addition to that, the province of Ontario recently permitted wine retail at more than an additional 4,000 stores within the province. That represents a 240% increase in retail outlets. It's difficult for me to accept that the subject property needs to host weddings and special events to diversify revenue streams. Next slide, please. In their report, the consultant indicates that the removal on the restriction of special events and weddings will not create any physical changes to the site. I find this a rather rich conclusion since the physical changes have already taken place. Next slide, please. Weddings and special events used to be hosted in the tennis court or gazebo, as outlined in yellow here on the subject property. In that configuration, the closest they were to the neighboring house was 86 meters, and that was Mr. Smith that came and presented earlier. Next slide, please. With the new configuration, the hall to be used for hosting these events is now 75 meters away from the nearest house and 85 meters from my house. Thus, they've effectively been moved closer to the neighboring houses rather than moving them away from potential sources of conflict. This distance is likely to be even less since the consultant concludes on page 5 of their report that on occasion special events may be hosted outside of the building. Next slide, please. Another comment that has been repeated is that the prohibition on weddings and special events is unique and punitive to the subject property. This argument loses credibility with a review of the Town of Grimsby zoning bylaw that reveals more than 400 such site-specific exclusions or exceptions on properties within the Town of Grimsby. Next slide, please. In conclusion, I've addressed each of the 3 changes. The redesignation of the winery as an agriculture-related use aligns with the guidelines. There is no justifiable objection to making this change. However, it's imperative the Town of Grimsby develop a definition of winery prior to making this modification. Next slide, please. I have 2 more to go. Similarly, the inclusion of wine sales and wine tasting also align with on-farm diversified uses in the OMAFRA guidelines, and there's no justifiable objection to making this change. However, many hospitality uses are specifically excluded from on-farm diversified use, including full-scale restaurants, banquet halls, and large-scale events. Prior to including hospitality as permitted on-farm diversified use, it is imperative that the Town of Grimsby develop a definition of hospitality services that align with planning guidelines and OMAFRA guidelines. Next slide, please. If the previous modification is made to the zoning of the subject property, intimate, small-scale, farm-focused special events would already be permitted. However, this presentation has outlined 6 reasons why the prohibition on weddings and large-scale special events must remain in place. The Town of Grimsby should look to properly define what small-scale events include, since zoning changes last much longer than property owners' intentions. Care must be taken to ensure zoning changes are made that balance the request with planning guidelines and the quality of life on neighboring properties. Next slide, please. Before I close my presentation, I do want to address the Camiso family. We've disagreed from time to time over the years, but I would like to actually express my gratitude and our family's gratitude for you as a neighbor and for your willingness to engage in a conversation on this matter. We appreciate having you as a neighbor on the street and trust that we can find a way to move forward that will meet your needs as a business owner while also balancing the quality of life for neighbors like us. Thanks again for engaging in this public consultation process.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Borger. Does staff or agent wish to respond? All right.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the committee. My name is Michael Fry. I'm a land use planner with DG Biddle and Associates. We are a civil and engineering land use planning consulting firm. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I did want to come up specifically to address a couple of the items that were brought up by Mr. Borger, and that is that the OMAFRA guidelines are very clear in that there are permissions for the hospitality use under on-farm diversified uses, which may include temporal considerations or intermittent events such as, temporary or intermittent events. And those are described in the OMAFRA guidelines as being permitted, and I wanted to make that clear because there's information that was provided earlier that says that that is in fact not permitted, where the OMAFRA guidelines very clearly say that they are. Also, the provincial planning statement of 2024 speaks to on-farm diversified uses as well, which says that if the municipality deems that those uses are appropriate, then those uses may be permitted. And the reason I bring that up is because the SC zone, the special crop zone that applies to many of the agricultural properties across the municipality, there isn't an exception to restrict weddings and events. And the fact that this exception applies just to one property is peculiar. My background is actually in zoning bylaws. I was previously a zoning bylaw examiner, and it's still my area of expertise. I haven't seen an exception apply to one property in this manner before, and that's what we're requesting, is that that exception be removed from this one property, because like I said, it is very peculiar that an exception restricting use applying to one property is very peculiar, not the norm in under the planning legislation of this province. That's all I had to address. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fry. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? Yeah, you can go up to the podium, state your name and address.
Sandra Romanoli, and I live at 592 Kemp Road East, and I really thank my neighbors who have come and spoke before, and I wasn't going to speak, but I live downwind, right beside Ron Smith. I actually know everything about one of the bridegrooms because I heard the father-in-law speak of his wonderful attributes in marrying his daughter. The thing that really is most upsetting to me is we were delegates in 2017 with the presentation. And Frank, you're a great guy, but you stood right up here and told us you wouldn't do that. All you wanted to do was play tennis in the tennis court. And you promised, and you made a joke actually with my daughters. Can I still play tennis? That's all you wanted to do. You weren't interested in this. So I feel a little bit upset that perhaps that was a mistruth that night. And as you don't any longer, you do own the property, but you don't live in the community any longer, that I'm aware of, that you don't live there 365 days a year like the rest of us do, it's a little upsetting to me. And that's all I wanted to say. And I hope you really search your hearts and go through this with a fine-tooth comb, because it's going to make a huge impact on that neighborhood.
Thank you for your comments. Any other members of the public? Come on up to the podium, state your name and address. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Jordan, members of the public. My name is Viraj Tokas, and my address is 557 Kemp Road. We are right opposite the Comiso Winery. In fact, me and my wife, Shafali, we recently moved there. It's been just a few months for us. So whatever I say might not hold much consideration to what's happened in the past. We are not aware. While we do welcome any growth and development in the area, I would support any growth and development in the area, provided the genuine concerns of the entire neighborhood are dealt with. That is all I have to say. I would really appreciate if we find a way that the concerns of the community, the neighborhood, can be managed, and we can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, come on up.
You said that I don't live in Grimsby, I work at the establishment.
Yeah, you're welcome to come up.
So I'm only going to address a few things that I think are mistaken. First of all, I have worked at the wine.
Your
Oh,
name
I'm
and
Leanne
number.
Glancy. I live in St. Catharines, but I have worked at the winery for 5 years now. And in 5 years, Frank Comiso has lived there 99.9% of the time. I'm jokingly his work wife, as people say. And as far as things like the B&B, if there's a mistake in that, I personally run the B&B, and the most I've ever rented the B&B out in 3 years is 2 nights. If there's something I've done wrong with advertisement, I will own it, not the Comisos, because I do that. As far as the weddings, they were all Comiso weddings and my family weddings that you have seen, which I understand that we're allowed to have family weddings. They can call the bylaw. They're in a tennis court that has no soundproof walls. Literally, if I was talking in that tennis court right now, yes, the neighbors could hear everything. The new building is soundproof. It's very quiet. And as much as I say I hate weddings, I just don't want restrictions. It's really hard to make money with restrictions. I don't see us ever being a party place. I do see us respecting our neighbors, and I don't think any of the neighbors can say I've disrespected them since I've taken over as manager of the winery. Yes, we have learned about the word event and our zoning, and we went in compliance with it since I got coached. Any other issues, I have always been there for the neighbors to talk to. I have no problem learning myself as we go along the way. But I'm just trying to think of all the other things that I saw that kind of was, I hate putting it like this, but there's one Bible and there's all these definitions. So we have one person with a presentation and that's their definition. And if I had it in front of me, I would have answers for it. So that is my bad. But as far as we have been there, we have been in compliance that I know of for everything. The B&B, the rental of the tennis courts, our insurance, our going to markets and all of that. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say except for the fact that we are having a good time up there. We're making no money, but people are loving us and we want to grow. And the other thing too is we're giving jobs. Like that area itself, like, anyone that lives on that street, if your kids need to be a dishwasher eventually or need a part-time job, it's a very far way to drive for your child to get a job downtown Grimsby, where we just, right there, jobs, landscaping, kitchen, serving, and it's just good. Anyway, sorry. Don't know what else.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? All right, go up to the podium and state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Danielle Young, and we live at 561 Kemp Road East. We're directly across from them. I just want to say, I don't feel like the way the winery is being run currently is any issue to any of the neighbors. I feel like the definitions of what hospitality and what winery are very key in moving forward in any way, shape, or form. I think I speak for all of the neighbors, we believe that what the existing owners and the people who are running it say will follow through with. The problem is that future uses. So if Camisos decide to sell and these conditions are removed, then it allows the door to be open for those things moving forward. I think that's a big concern for most of the neighbors. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Come on up to the podium, state your name and address, please.
So my name is Terry Camiso. I'm Frank and Marietta's daughter. I have always loved agriculture and the business of winemaking. So I am very excited to be the next generation in this business. This business is not going anywhere. And I have also my children who are in hospitality, and it's going to continue. This land is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Thank you. Any further residents like to speak? Come on up, Frank.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the committee and neighbors. So the Camiso family has lived on this farm land since 1952, and one of the things we've always strived to do is be good neighbors with all of our neighbors. And we continue today, and my daughter Terry just made me very happy, saying that she intends to continue the tradition of the Camiso family farming this tender fruit land that is clearly designated under the official plan as tender fruit. It allows the growing of grapes and making of wine. And as the winery business has evolved in Niagara, we are sort of trying to keep pace. Just a couple of corrections. I do live at 564 Kemp Road East, and I sleep there every night. My mother-in-law gets mad at me because after New Year's Eve, after we pop the champagne to celebrate New Year's Eve, I come home all the way to Grimsby to sleep in my own bed. Yeah, I do live there. No problem. So I look at the sort of transgressions of the past, having some weddings, the majority of them being family weddings, although there were a couple of other arm's-length weddings. I see them for all of us as a learning experience of what not to do and what to do. So in the construction of the new building, we've taken great pains and expense to make it soundproof. I shouldn't say soundproof, more retaining of sound. And we also are working with the audio company to engineer sound system that is strictly for background music, not big booming music that you hear sometime in discos and some weddings. So we want to be very careful and very considerate of the concerns of the neighbors. We want to be able to get together. I would actually like our winery building to become the community hub. Growing up in the area, all of my sisters and all of the children of the neighbors over the years, we would hold community showers and community celebrations whenever someone in our families was having a wedding or a baby was being born and so on. And I want to keep that. And I would like very much for the neighbors to feel welcome to come in and enjoy the facility. I'm quite certain. I was happy to have a meeting at the winery last week where I met with all of the neighbors. All the close neighbors were invited, and most of you came, and we had a chance to get together and talk, and you expressed your concerns. And we have made notes of those concerns, and they're important to us. We intend to continue to be good neighbors. And we intend to address all of the issues. We don't want to go and sort of develop a confrontational relationship. So the winery is achieving success. We have many satisfied, happy wine club members. We feel that we are a really important member of the community. Wineries are looked upon favorably by the province and by the municipality as fostering tourism and creating employment. We will probably have in the vicinity of 25 employees once the once the winery is running in the new building. We feel that we deserve a fair opportunity to be successful and to be a responsible member of the community. Thank you all for participating. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Frank. Seeing no more members of the public, any questions of clarification from the committee? Councillor Frake.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. As you all know, most of you know, I'm the councillor for Ward 1, and you all live in Ward 1. And nice to see you out, and nice to see the whole neighborhood out with such a interest in what's going on up in the area. As councillors, as committees, we have to be very careful what we say. We cannot make comments to sway any thinking. So I'm not going to ask any questions, and I'm not going to make any comments one way or the other. But I must admit, thank you very much for coming out and airing your views. And hopefully we'll come to an amicable conclusion to this particular situation. So that's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to move any further than that. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you everyone for your participation in the public meeting. Staff will take your feedback. Please contact staff at planning@grimsby.ca if you have any additional comments or questions about the proposal after this evening. The public meeting is now closed. Up next, can I get a mover and seconder to get the introductory report for additional residential units on the floor for discussion? Councillor Frake. Member Potter, moved by Councillor Frake, second by Member Potter. Lauren, please go ahead.
You want to give everyone a moment?
Yeah, well, just wait till everyone leaves, Lauren, and or you can stay if you want. All right, I think you can go ahead now, Lauren.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So through the mayor, so I don't have a presentation, but I have a few lines that I'm just going to speak to the introductory nature of the report that's on the agenda tonight about additional residential units. So town staff are proposing to make an amendment to the zoning bylaw and the official plan to bring them into line with provincial legislation, regulation, plans, and policies, specifically regarding additional residential units, as well as a few like minor fixes, housekeeping sort of components that are largely, again, related to the additional residential unit component. So for some more context, additional residential units, also called ARUs sometimes, or ADUs, or even secondary suites, but we're going with the provincial terminology here, so that's ARUs, sorry about that. They are separate dwelling units that contain living, kitchen, and sanitary facilities, and are typically, they are secondary and subordinate to the primary dwelling on a lot where they can be permitted. Right now, the zoning bylaw and the official plan are not in conformity, and staff continue to receive kind of increasing numbers of inquiries regarding ADUs or ARUs, both within the settlement area and actually outside of the settlement area as well. So the amendment here that we're interested in hopefully moving forward with would ultimately serve as kind of a stepping stone between our current official plan and zoning bylaw, and of course the official plan that is currently being reviewed, and the future zoning bylaw that will be reviewed. But of course that is, you know, a few years down the line likely, and so this will kind of bring things at least a bit more up to speed for the official plan and the zoning bylaw regarding ARU specifically. Yeah, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren. Questions from the committee? No, seeing none. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Member Potter. Resolved that report PA 25-14, introductory report, proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments for additional residential units dated April 23rd, 2025 be received for information. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Up next, we don't have any correspondence. Any other business from the committee? Seeing none, the next Planning and Development Committee meeting is scheduled for May 7th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Good evening, everyone. Meeting is adjourned. Have a good night.